everyone, and welcome back, and welcome to part 2 of my DIY powder coating oven. Today we're going to try and get most of the gubbins from the original oven into this unit. Yes, everyone, and thank you very much for joining me once again. As I said at the beginning, I want to try and get all the electrical stuff out of this oven that I bought into this unit. Now, the oven I bought is a double oven unit, so the top one is a really large heating element, which is going to be fantastic because I'm going to place that sort of down the bottom, and obviously heat rises, so if I put it down the bottom, and then I'm going to utilize the fan assist off the main oven, and I'm going to place that sort of midway. Hopefully that way, as the fan, you know, as the heat rises and the fan's going to circulate all the air, any parts and stuff that I have in there is going to be, you know, completely heated all the way around. I'm not going to have one half of the part at one temperature and the other half at a different temperature. So that's the plan anyway. I'm still waiting for some more C-stud wall sections so I can actually complete the door, but it's not the end of the world today because, like I say, I want to try and just get most of this into there. That way I can then also insulate all the sides and the back and get all the sheet metal and stuff on. And then, obviously, we can then concentrate on building the door and getting all the door seal and putting it all on once those bits are here. But for now, like I said, I'm going to strip down this oven and I'm going to try and just utilise all the electrical stuff. I've got some old sheet metal that came off the top here where the controls were actually sat in. And there's a fan for the controls and for all the wiring and stuff, which I would like to try and utilise so that that wiring and the boards and stuff don't get too hot. So I'm going to try and build an enclosure for those electronics. So we're just going to crack on, get all this taken apart, hopefully take lots of pictures to see where all the cables and stuff go. That way I can then build that control cabinet and then we can get everything fitted. Okay, so both the heating elements, or all three heating elements are in. I didn't realise when I took the oven apart there was actually one heating element. I'm not sure what it does. However, that was sort of in between both ovens, but I think it was something to do with the top oven, so I've kept them two together. And I've also utilised the original bracket that was on the oven that was keeping this in place at the front. So this is now pretty rigid, that's not going anywhere. This top element actually is a lot more rigid anyway because it has the 3 holes that I was able to put rivets in, whereas that bottom one only had 2 and it was a lot longer and a lot heavier. So that is all now properly secure, properly rigid. I have also installed the fan and the heating element that was around the fan. I might utilise the original cover that was on the back of the oven just because it might make it look a little bit more, well, it's going to be a little bit more covered. It's not just going to look like a random fan and heating element in the middle of a container. Also, I have installed both temperature probes and I've put them in exactly the same place. So the reason why I've done that, or the logic behind it in my head, is obviously each one of them corresponds to either that heating element there or that heating element there. So I wanted them to both read the same temperature because I didn't want one turning off and one still being on, and vice versa. So that way, hopefully, if the temperature probes both say it's at 180 degrees, they'll either both turn off or maintain, you know, their current heat rather than one being on, one being off. So if we go around to the rear, I have tried to tidy up the wiring as much as possible. It's still a little bit of a mess. However, this is as best as I'm going to be able to get it. Obviously, all those wiring here, I need to put the insulation around and I want to put it underneath so that these are protected by the insulation, so that obviously this back section here is going to get warm. I don't want the wiring obviously starting to melt, so if I have the insulation between there, hopefully that insulation is going to keep that nice and protected. And obviously this wiring section here needs to be on the outside of the oven anyway, so I was going to utilize the box. I've cut the fascia off the original oven which had the controls set in, so that's what I've done. I've put them back in, so this is going to be sort of, I'll screw this onto the back. I'm going to try and utilize the other piece of sheet metal that was on the outside of the oven, because that had a nice hole and everything mounting for the fan. So this fan keeps that board cool, keeps all these wires cool, keeps these controls cool. So all of this wiring here is going to have to come sort of through the sheet metal, and I have bought some lovely glands, so I'll probably put a gland on the sheet metal when I attach this on the back, bring all of this cabling through, and then that will go into the external box once I've built all that. But again, I need to pack this full of insulation, try and protect all of these wires, try and protect the wires that are around that heating element there. The only problem I've got right now is I wanted to try and utilize this main connection block. I wanted that in the exterior control unit as well. However, that's not going to happen because all the wires are just too short. So I'm probably going to have to just mount that on the steel there, which isn't the end of the world, because obviously that's where I'm going to connect my flex or my plug socket, so that obviously it's then going to work. So it's also got a place for the earth as well. So if I put the sheet metal on and put that there and earth that there, it's actually going to serve a purpose anyway. I just wanted it all nice and neat and tidy in its own little control box with those controls and everything. But that's what we're up to right now. And like I say, let's crack on and get some insulation on, get some sheet metal on, and then yeah, we can crack on with the control box. And okay, so I've covered everything in insulation. I've actually left a hole round where the fan is. I've tried to not block the fan so that can actually spin freely. Plugged it in, and straight away the lights came on, which is obviously a great start. I've pressed one of the buttons to make the clock work. Like I say, I've set it for 5 past midnight for some reason. So I think this one here is the fan one. I can hear the relay clicking in, and I can hear the fan start up, which is obviously great. So obviously that would be then the temperature control. Yep, that's now off. And then this one should be the main bottom 2 elements. I can hear the relay clicking on, and I can hear the heating elements plinking as it's getting hot. So that's a good sign as well. Obviously I'd have to flip it up to see the elements actually getting warm or not, but I'm pretty confident now that that's all working correctly. So I want to put this main back sheet on now, but I'm going to have to cut a hole here for this element where the wiring goes into, because that's just going to have to sit in the back of the sheet, which is fine because that way I can then extend or change the wiring whenever I want. So yes, we're going to get on with now, and then we can then concentrate on doing this on the other side, because that's then the last side that's missing all the insulation stuff. So let's get cracking. Okay, so I've screwed the back panel on for now. I'll run through that in a second, but I thought I'd turn it on and see if everything works after fiddling around with all the wiring. I did make one mistake, but it seems to have not caused any issue. As you can see at the bottom there, that main grill is now firing up a treat, running at about 237 degrees. And then if we just test this one as well, that's also at 200 degrees. So with that getting nice and hot, and that also producing a nice amount of heat, obviously when the door's on, hopefully this will easily get up to 180 degrees and be pretty consistent. So I mean, I can feel the heat coming out of here now. It's lovely. So if we now run around the back, this is what I've done with the wiring so far. So like I say, the main wiring point there, which would be on the back of any oven like that, I've ground that out as you saw, popped that in, attached the earth to the sheet metal as well. Now I've screwed this back panel in because obviously this is where all the wiring is, so I didn't want to rivet it, and then obviously if I had an issue then have to drill all the rivets out. At least this way we can just unscrew it. But what I've done is ran all the cables through a grommet there, which go to the dials and the clocks and everything, and that one there is for the fan, for the wiring, although it's not actually doing anything right now, so I'm guessing there must be some kind of temperature thing around here which detects whether these wires are getting hot or the PCB and everything's getting hot. So I'm not too worried about that for now. I really could do with obviously building an enclosure, but I have just screwed this panel in like that, so at least it now works. I did have 3 cables I actually couldn't do anything with, like feeding through the grommet. So these 2 are the temperature probes. There's actually no way of undoing them from the dials. They are hardwired in and soldered in. And then this one is an earth, which I've actually bolted to the side of the C-stud wall section, so hopefully the whole thing is earthed. So yeah, I'm happy with that just sitting there like that, to be honest. Like I say, building an enclosure around there, and yeah, it's going to look really, really neat and tidy, so I'm really over the moon with the finish. The only section left is this one. I just need to fill this full of insulation and put the side on there. I have picked up some more C-stud wall section, which means I can crack on with the door as well, but that's probably going to be next week now because I'm running out of time. So yeah, this one I'm going to try and fill up with insulation and get the sheet on, and then we'll go from there. All the time I've got for this weekend. However, I'm super happy with the progress that I've actually managed to make this week. So obviously all the gaps are now completely filled with fire sealant or this fire putty that I managed to pick up. So it's basically the same as what was in the caulking gun, however it's just in a big tub and it's in a putty form. So in the big gaps along the top edges, I filled it full of this. So now hopefully all the heat is going to be contained to the interior of the oven. Obviously both sides are now completely covered in the sheet metal and full of insulation. Obviously that back panel is now done. I'm really pleased with the finish of that, being able to use those glands and the way I managed to actually fit the main connection terminal point into the back flush as if it was inside a regular oven. I was really happy that I managed to get all that done because the wires were so
short that being able to try and manoeuvre the sheet and put the wires and stuff through was an absolute nightmare. So I'm really happy that that's all done and dusted, and it works. That's the main thing. So I was super nervous about getting a cable wrong after putting it all back together, but it's all good, all done, all working. So the only thing I've got left now to do is actually build the door. And as I said earlier, I've picked up all the materials for the door, so we'll get that done next weekend, utilising some glass sections and stuff, so that we'll actually be able to have a window in the door whilst it's on. And then we should hopefully be able to give it a test run. I've got a few bits of metal and stuff. I might even take something off the MR2 that I'm going to powder coat eventually and give it a go. I have got some powders. They're not very good colours. However, we might just test some out and just see what the crack is with them. And then, yeah, then we can give the oven its maiden voyage. I have got to fit some hooks so that obviously we can hang the parts once they're being cooked. But again, we'll cross that bridge next weekend. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you then. So see you in the next one.